we go. Okay. All right, well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here to join us today as we talk about this. We're going to go over quite a bit about how this evolved and then what we're expecting for our preparation as the School of Nursing to be able to support this. I will share a PowerPoint presentation with you that'll also be available on Blackboard for you to be able to see. Dr. Kirshner and Sam and myself will be really kind of leading you through this. And we have quite a few faculty members that have agreed to participate or offered their interest, right? I think that's the biggest thing with this as we get going. We all understand that the timing is not known yet. I'm going to center myself a little bit more. Timing is not known yet. And that's really the hardest part about the whole thing, is trying to figure out, I'm just letting people in, trying to figure out when we're going to be deployed for it, right? And we just don't know. So we all understand that all of us have lives outside of school, outside of Concordia, and we have to make plans. And so we will do the best we can as far as doing that. We'll talk a little bit more as we get into this, but most of us, you know, we want to help if we can, but we also can't be on call for 24/7 to be able to do this. So we're only a small part of the big plan that they have in place. But and so just a couple of housekeeping things. What we ask is that as we go through this, that you write your questions down. We'll have a question and answer period at the end. And the reason we ask that is first of all, we want to make sure we get through all of the content that we need to get through to share with you. Second of all, the question that you ask may indeed be answered later in our presentation. So we won't be using the chat to ask questions. We won't be like monitoring that. We'll actually have a question and answer time at the end. Okay? All right. And I'd love to start us off with a little bit of prayer. It's been kind of a crazy week for all of us. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and pray. Dear Lord, you are an amazing God. We thank you for our hour together today. During this time of uncertainty, we ask that you help us remember, regardless of how the election's results are, you are still on your throne. Use us, Lord, as instruments of your peace and as your hands and heart to care for those who need us. In Jesus' sweet name, amen. Thank you. All right. So I am going to share my screen with you. Make sure that I have my PowerPoint up as my second screen, and I do. Let me try this again. Okay. All right, so Sam, I can see you. Can you see my PowerPoint? Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to just put this in presenter mode here, and we'll see. There we go. Okay. All right. So really what we're going to be talking about today is our involvement in this. As we go through, I'll let you know, we'll let you know who else has been involved, but our involvement. And there's several vaccines in their phase 3 trials right now, their phase 3 clinical trials. And we hear things in the news every single day. And it's really hard to discern what is political hype, what is marketing on the part of the manufacturer or the university doing the clinical trials, and what is solid information based on fact. And because of this, we will use as our primary source of information for this event the Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department. That's where the request has come from, and they are charged with coordinating this. So we will listen to what they are telling us about what vaccines are going to be used and how we're going to use them. Our goal is to help you to be prepared to be able to participate in this. And, you know, that's what nurses do. We kind of prepare ourselves for helping out when anything is needed. We're sharing with you today what we do know at this point in time, and we will continue to update you as we go on. Okay, so here's the agenda that we'll go through today. First, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what really the background of the request is that we got from the Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department. And then I'll share with you what our current vision of what the clinic is going to look like. And then we are going to look at, Dawn will go over the preparations, and then the training steps and what we're expecting for you. And then Sam's going to do some demonstration or share a video with us and go over kind of the practice and the validation of skills. And then I'll go over the notification process of when it's to go time, right? When is it go time? And then Dawn will finish up with clinical site expectations. If there's anything that we don't cover, like I said, we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So I'm not sure if you know this is exactly what this is called, but this is Operation Warp Speed is the official name of what we're doing here as far as getting 300 million doses of a safe and effective vaccine with initial doses by January of 2021. I will tell you that I've been very skeptical from the very beginning about how we could be a rapid deployment of a vaccine and how it could be safe. And so I pulled up a fact sheet that was actually just released this week, and I will share it with everybody when we're done with this. I've already shared it with faculty. In that fact sheet, it really talks about what they did in order to expedite this moving quickly forward without negatively impacting the safety of it. And that was basically, they are taking financial risk by actually having the phase 3 trials being completed at the same time that manufacturing has actually started on these vaccines. So there were over 100 companies that came forward with vaccines that they had in development, and 14 were chosen for this Operation Warp Speed. The cost of this is $10 billion. Part of that is part of the CARES Act. And it's a partnership between the Department of Health and Human Services, which includes the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institutes of Health, and then the Biometric Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, and then also with the Department of Defense. As you can well imagine, it also has to do with defense of our country. So we have many that are overlying on their phase 3 trials, and some of them are really different than others. So it's really going to be important as we move forward that we actually concentrate, and we know and concentrate on what the vaccines are that we're going to be delivering. We're praying that it's just going to be one that we're going to be delivering, but we don't know that for sure. You know, there are more brilliant minds than mine trying to figure out how the scheduling is going to work. But Operation Warp Speed, I will share that fact sheet with you so that you can do that. But I didn't know that's what it was called. Sam looked like he knew what it was called. I didn't know what it was called. So the background is that in early September, the Washington Ozaukee Health Department contacted our School of Nursing and asked if we could help with this deployment. John Hannon is the emergency preparedness coordinator there, and he is charged with putting together the plan. And as you probably have read about or even surmised on your own, the plan really talks about deployment to frontline workers, to people that are at high risk, which would include nursing homes and skilled care facilities, before it is actually offered to the general public. They are also offering this vaccine as they would any other vaccine. The plan is to offer it to primary care practitioners, that they could offer it within their clinics to be able to give that to patients. So what John really has been charged with is how do we immunize the rest of the population? How do we do that quickly? Some of these vaccines that are in trial now actually need another phase of it, a booster, within 3 months, within 6 weeks. Some of them are different. So that's going to be all tracked by, obviously, the tracking system we have in the state for immunizations. But it is going to just complicate it a little bit on the bigger picture. And so I keep trying to put my blinders on and say, but I just have to worry about what we're going to do, right? That bigger picture is not our concern right now. And so we don't know the date. It is getting closer. We know that. We know that the goal was January of 2021 to start with some of these places. But in my mind, I'm thinking the start of January is actually going to be those nursing homes, skilled care facilities, first frontline responders, first responders, and frontline healthcare workers. But I don't know that for sure. I'm just sharing with you what I'm thinking. And also, we're not the only ones that at Concordia who have been asked to participate in this. So we know that the School of Pharmacy is actually actively involved. And as you know, pharmacists are skilled in giving immunizations. That is something that they've been doing for a number of years now. And their students, when they're in the School of Pharmacy, many of them have already been certified for that. And so they will be participating too. And as we look at, and other community groups, I think the last time I talked to John, he said like he needs at least 125 groups that are going to offer individuals to help out. So we currently have about 16 students who have voiced an interest in about 6 faculty members. So we will be part of a team. That's really kind of what the vision is for this. The vision really is that it would be a team. What John had talked about was the ones that he's used to with flu vaccines, with drive-through flu vaccines, is a team of like 5 people where you would have one person who was in charge of like the administration and writing stuff down and making sure that all the documentation was correct. And then you would have 1 or 2 people that were in charge of drawing up the vaccine, labeling it correctly, making sure that that was all okay. That might even include the reconstitution of that vaccine. And then you have a couple of people that are actually doing the immunizations. What we're looking for your role here right now primarily is giving the vaccinations. We are still unclear, and Sam will talk about this, still unclear if you're going to need to reconstitute anything. In our minds, we're thinking that's probably going to be the pharmacists, the pharmacy students that are going to be doing the reconstitution, but we don't know that for sure. So we'll keep you up to speed on that. But they are thinking of having drive-through clinics. The location of those, they're not 100% sure where that's going to be. But we do have flu drive-in clinics where you take the paperwork, you make sure all the questions are ones that you would deem safe for that individual then to receive the vaccine. And then you're actually immunizing them while they're in the car. And you can do both sides if you have a passenger in that car. They talked that they would also have a walk-up clinic because obviously you want to have that population that does not have access to being able to drive up in a car. So they were thinking of having a walk-up clinic as well. And the location is going to be close to our university. So it's not going to be outlying. You're not going to have to travel a great distance if you are indeed a resident here. I think that's it for that part. Okay. Dawn, I'm going to turn it over to you. You let me know when you want me to click, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Kathy. So when we look at being prepared, one of the things that we'll be talking about too, like Kathy said, is we don't know when this is going to happen, but what we want to ensure is that all of our students are prepared and confident and ready to go once we are actually called up and, as Kathy said, deployed for this. And so we're looking for you to feel confident and prepared to participate in knowing how to give IM injections safely, know the basics of reconstitution of medications, and that may change depending on which vaccine we come up with. We may not have to do the reconstitution, or again, as Kathy said, it might be the pharmacy students doing it, but we do want our students prepared and ready to do that if we're asked. And then how to draw up a vaccine from a multi-dose vial. So we need to be ready to respond quickly, perhaps in as little as 48 hours. And so we're going to be receiving just-in-time training from the Washington Ozaukee Health Department. And those will be that just-in-time training is really not about learning the skills or refreshing the skills. We actually know you've already been taught these skills, you've tested off on these skills, but we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and be able to put them together in a safe but timely manner. And so the just-in-time training is really going to look at such things as what vaccines will we be using, how will they be administered, who will do the vaccination, so how are those teams going to kind of be put together, and what are the roles of the individuals in those teams, when and where the clinics will be held, and then what are the roles of each of those team members. So the just-in-time training may be done via communication, such as an email. It might be a virtual format, such as Zoom. And so those are things that, again, as we find out, Kathy and I will really be in touch with you to let you know when this just-in-time training is happening. The one thing that we also want to share with you is that they're asking for our availability and when our students and faculty would be available. And as Kathy said, we all have personal lives, we have other commitments. And with the holidays coming up, Kathy and I talked for a long time, and we were just like, you know what, we don't want the students and the faculty to really have to hold in the back of their mind, oh, I might get called during the holiday season. So we are actually telling the Ozaki Health Department that we are not going to be offering availability between December 19th and January 4th. So really just an opportunity to disconnect and not worry about having to be called up and get ready to do some of these clinics. Okay, Kathy, next slide, please. So part of the training for the preparation is that there's actually 4 steps to it. So Sam is going to be reviewing some of these steps with you. And you're going to be required to review demonstration videos. Practice, practice, practice. You all know that the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. And then we're going to ask that you create 4 videos and submit them to Blackboard. Now, the videos may be reduced to only 2 videos if we do not have to reconstitute the medication. And that all depends too when we find out the timing of that. And so if we don't find out that timing, we are going to ask you to create that video regarding reconstitution. So the 4 videos will be finding your proper landmarks in the deltoid, your proper IM injection technique, proper medication reconstitution technique, and then again, drawing up from a multi-dose vial. And so to help you really train and to make sure that everyone had the same equipment and access to the equipment, we actually put together some practice baggies for you. So starting next Monday, you can stop by the nursing office and pick up your practice baggie. Each baggie has the exact same contents in it. We've put in there some syringes for you. We've put in some blunt needles. We've put in some vials of powder and sterile water so you can reconstitute. We've put in alcohol swabs. We've put in Band-Aids. We've put in gloves. We've put in extra needles. So there's everything that you need in that bag. The only difference is that when you go to pick up your bag, make sure you ask for what size gloves you have. So we have, some of the little baggies have small size gloves, some have medium, and some have large. And Kathy, I believe we made a couple extra large, or did we just do large? Do you remember?
We just did large. We didn't have extra large when we were putting them together.
Yep. Okay, so starting Monday, you feel free to stop by in the nursing office and pick up your baggies. And then we also have a Blackboard site where we're going to ask you to submit your training videos to. And then once you have submitted those, Kathy and I, and possibly Sam as well, will be looking at these and really evaluating them to make sure that it's a safe technique. Kathy, I'm going to stop sharing your screen for a minute if you don't mind, because I would like to just show them where on Blackboard it is. Okay. So if you, Kathy, I can see your face on the screen. Do you see a Blackboard? Do you see our Blackboard course? Okay, thank you. So when you sign into Blackboard, if you come over here where you have different choices and choose community, under community, we have got a Blackboard organization that says COVID-19 Vaccination Project. And if you click on that under the content page, there is going to be a, we'll put the PowerPoints here from tonight, and as well as the recording. And we will also add drop boxes. So this is where you will be able to submit and upload your training videos of those 4 different steps.
And Dawn, I would say that you can look for that Blackboard on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I need to add the students and the faculty to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they try to access it now, they might not have that access to
right,
it.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. So everything Monday. So access to the Blackboard site and then being able to pick up your baggies. All right, let's see if I can get back to your PowerPoint. Kathy, maybe you want to bring your PowerPoint back up? I think you have to since you started it. And then could we go to the next slide, please? And Sam.
All right, it's my time to shine. Awesome. As Dawn was kind of alluding to before, we're going to have to make sure that you guys are up to speed on how to do some deltoid injections and possibly reconstituting medications. There's a lot of variables we don't know yet. That's what Kathy was talking about in terms of are we even going to have to reconstitute? And if we do, how are we divvying up our teamwork? Is pharmacy going to be taking care of that? When we reconstitute, are we going to be getting like one large multi-dose vial, which is probably what's most likely? And then when we extract, are they going to tell us how many milligrams or milliliters? There's a whole bunch of things. What is important is that they will give us the information that we need to be successful. So there should be no worrying there about having a freak out moment of, oh crap, I don't know what to do, and they aren't telling us specifically what to do. And even if we have assigned specific roles, we do need to be willing to, if we're allowed to, be flexible. For instance, it's possible that maybe pharmacy is supposed to be doing the reconstitution, but through the day we are getting tons of patients or clients coming in to get this vaccine, and they can't keep up with reconstituting. If they're allowed or we're allowed, we could possibly help them with that, because I know every one of you has taken my class, and deltoid was a thing. On that note, has anyone here done any kind of IM injection recently at all in clinical? Can you raise your hand? Okay, awesome. That's honestly better than I thought. Just because with IVs being in the hospital and everything, unless you're doing vaccines, maybe that was it. You don't always get as many opportunities as we'd like for that. Do you guys remember when we were in 213, so way back when, you guys did the Rocephin reconstitution? Okay. That's essentially what we're going to be doing here today. I'm going to, I guess I'll show you that in a second. We'll stay on the slide. Basically, we have a couple different options, or what we could be told to do when we're at this session. The first thing would just be that they will tell us that we have to draw up some diluent, like sterile water or saline, and we're going to have to inject that into a multi-dose vial. And then they will tell us how many mLs to draw up for each individual patient. And then from there, it'll just be like identifying what lot that came from and all that kind of stuff for the paperwork. And I'm not sure exactly how involved we'll be with that. We might be very involved or we might not, but it'll just be kind of keeping track of information like that. In that scenario, it's very unlikely that you'll have to do any kind of medication calculations. You'll just be following the explicit instructions of insert this much fluid into this vial, reconstitute it, and draw this much out, which would be very simple. And I honestly think that's what they're going to do for us, because if they can keep it simple for us, it's less likely that we're going to make mistakes. And we don't want to make mistakes. That would be bad. So the thing that also could happen would be what's more closely done with what we did in a lab, which was that they might give us a total amount of fluid to put into the vial. And then they might tell us a milligram amount of medication to pull out, at which point we just have to use some dimensional analysis, consider how much fluid we put in and how many total milligrams are in the vial. And then we're going to have to figure out how many milliliters to extract from that. It's a pretty simple math calculation. And what I'm talking with you guys about today is not really to review that. But if you are uncomfortable with that, please see me, because I want to make sure you're feeling good about that, not only for this, but also just for your clinical experiences. I know math is not always our favorite thing as nurses, but I promise you we can be good enough to do these more simple math calculations safely if needed. But I really don't actually think it's going to be that way. I really do think they're going to keep it as simple as possible for us so that we are less likely to make mistakes. If you want to go to the next slide, that would be great, Kathy. Thank you. A couple of things, and I'm planning on doing some demonstration here and showing a little video I found. But when it comes to these vials, we're going to be playing with probably larger vials than you guys did with Rocephin. These will be multi-dose patient vials, so they'll be larger, and we'll extract fluid for multiple patients from it. But if you guys remember with Rocephin, when we were playing with those vials, we had to always be kind of conscious about normalizing the pressure in the vials. I can't remember, I actually feel like it had to have been someone in this room, but we were, pulling that Rocephin out, and someone didn't remove the pressure in their vial. And as they removed the needle, it was like, it just kind of flew all over the place and got all over someone's lab coat, I'm sure. And it was very sad because the Rocephin is yellow, and that's fun. That's something to look out for. At the same time, if you don't take care of normalizing pressure when you are trying to extract your fluid from the vial of diluent, you might create a vacuum in the vial, which would make it harder to remove the exact amount you want, because the syringe is going to be pulling back in. And when we're dealing with larger syringes and larger vials of fluid, that pressure is going to be more apparent, maybe than you're used to. So this is a general reminder. If we're trying to extract something from a vial, you want to inject air equal to the amount of fluid in there with your before you try to extract. That will actually help get exactly the amount of fluid that you're trying to get out without having to deal with a vacuum trying to pull your syringe back in, or fluid really trying to get out on you and end up getting all over you. At that same light, when we are injecting fluid into the vial of diluent, we want to make sure we normalize the pressure when we're done, which would mean keeping the needle pointed down and just pulling up air from the vial if we can. This will be very important because the reconstitution step and the drawing the syringe step might be at two separate times. And if we're injecting a lot of fluid into a bigger vial and then trying to drop a very small amount of fluid later, those pressures probably won't be the same. And you'll get that moment happening left and right if the person who's reconstituting doesn't try to remove that air to equalize the cubic pounds of pressure. So we will try to remember to do those things. And I can show you guys that if you want in a moment. If you want to go to the next slide really quick, thank you. This is a sterile procedure. Hopefully I don't have to tell you guys that, but just as a reminder, this is sterile. We're going to bypass the natural defenses of the skin, and unlike other meds that go through the GI tract, this stuff doesn't go through as many security checks when we use a needle and pass through that. So it's really important that we don't introduce something foreign to the body. So a couple of reminders. This is an aseptic non-touch technique procedure, which means that we're not going to be doing a full sterile gown and gloves and the mask, and well, we'll probably be wearing a mask hopefully, but you get my point. We're not going to be wearing sterile gloves, which means that we are going to touch things and contaminate them. The key is to be very particular about what we are willingly contaminating or not. AKA, I'm going to try my very darndest best not to touch the needle tip or the length of the plunger as I'm moving it back in and out of the vial or in and out of the syringe. Anything that's going to make contact with the medication is going to be really important to keep sterile, because otherwise we're going to be introducing whatever was on our fingers or on the table if we set our needle down, that kind of stuff. Make sure that you are using a non-blunt tip needle when you poke the patient. It's blunt for a reason. It's good enough to get to the vial, but it's not going to be fun to try to drive that through a patient. Your patient will definitely let you know if it's not fun. The only reason why you might do this is if you are reconstituting and also giving the medication. If we are somehow tied into both roles, you're just going to want to make very certain that you are not using one of these blunt tips, which are labeled blunt tip. They're usually like really big. You want to be using the smaller, usually shorter, sharp-looking needles. So just keep that in mind. As always, too, we're going to want to cleanse the skin. I think, especially in this environment where we're all going to be very conscientious of how long we're taking to do things, it's important to remember that some things we still have to do slowly. One being that we have to do a good job of cleaning up that skin, and we also have to let it dry appropriately. Some of these skin cleansers, like half the action of removing microbes from the skin is in the process of it drying on it. So even if you're a little nervous or something, just please give it the time it needs. Some of these take only 20, 30 seconds to dry, depending on what they have you using. Some of the more elaborate ones, if you get really saturated, could take 60 seconds, but I don't think that will be what we're using either. So most likely it'll be like about 20 seconds or so. So please just give it the time it needs. Lastly, these rubber vials. Remember that the surface here can very easily get contaminated. So you're going to want to make sure that you wipe those off, whether it's with alcohol or something of the like, before you insert your needle through them. Just because, again, whatever's on that surface is going to get put into the vial then, and especially since this is a multi-dose vial, if you contaminate that multi-dose vial, all of our patients that get that lot could be at risk. And that's why we document things like their lot number to make sure if there's a problem, we can look into the other people who received it. But we just ideally don't want to be dealing with that. So we're going to try not to. All right, Kathy, next slide if you can. Thank you. Next is landmarks. Hopefully this isn't too far away from when you learned it, that this seems foreign to you or anything like that. But with these landmarks, we're going to try to find that acromion process, which is kind of like that upper outermost bony prominence just above your shoulder. Depending on if you have a lot of subcutaneous tissue in your shoulders, it might be harder to feel. But even then, it's usually easier to feel than even like the upper part of your humerus and whatnot. So with this, we're going to feel for that bone, and then we're going to go 2 to 3 fingers down, and use your common sense with this. If you go 2 fingers down and it feels like rock hard, you're probably feeling another bone, and don't go right there. Then use your 3rd finger. And really, we're just trying to kind of feel for a softer surface is a good start. And then when you start to feel around the sides of that arm, you should maybe be able to feel that muscle if you reach in closer to the sides. I don't know if you can see me right now with this share screen. Don't necessarily undo it, Kathy, because I think it's good to see up there. But with that, we're here to remember a couple other things too. The triangle shape on the arm is there for a reason, and that's because this muscle, this deltoid muscle, kind of tapers off as it goes further down the arm in a triangular-ish shape. Maybe not exactly like that, but pretty darn close. So if we go too much further down than 3 fingers, it's more likely that we might miss our target. It's also really important that we recognize that as people get older, and we might be dealing with some older patients with this, we might not, that muscle can start to droop a little bit more too. So you really just want to do a good light palpation. Try to make sure you're feeling for something soft tissue and not something bony. And again, it's a common sense thing. Maybe you're even 3 fingers down. If it feels like a bone, don't just be like, well, it's 3 fingers down and just go for it, because that would be not ideal. Lastly, on this slide, just really make sure that the arm is nice and relaxed. It is going to be a lot harder or uncomfortable for the patient if they are tensed up and their muscles flexed, because the whole point with this vaccine is that we are going to add fluid into someone's body where normally there isn't supposed to be any there. And normally that area is already pretty busy and full, and it's got lots going on. So if we start jamming people into the room that aren't normally supposed to be there, it's going to be uncomfortable. And when people tense their muscles up, that contracts the space even more. So really getting them to try to relax their arm. And most of us, especially these days, I feel like most of us have a little bit of natural tension in our shoulders all the time. If we all relax our shoulders right now, you realize I probably drop almost a whole inch when I'm not thinking about it. So just keep that in mind. You'll also see people, maybe you've watched other videos or you've done it yourself, where they try to pinch really hard on the arm or whatever. Again, don't pinch super hard. It's good to kind of get a grip on it to stabilize the muscle. But ideally, we are going to just have a kind of a light grip. Don't really drive into there. I used to work with a nurse who would tell me she'd pinch really hard because then the patient would be distracted by the needle. And maybe there is some advantage to that. But again, if we pinch really hard, we're basically passively contracting that muscle group, and that's giving it less space to do its work. And that's going to just make them more sore in the long run. Cool. Excellent. So I actually have the video up here, Kathy, so in a minute, I'll ask you to unshare. But a couple other things here really quick too. Don't aspirate on this. We don't aspirate on vaccines. The whole point of aspiration is just to make sure that you're not in a major, vessel or anything, because if we inject into that, we are changing the route of our medication essentially into, intravenous, which would not be great. But if we follow our landmarks appropriately, we should be avoiding, at least consider the considerable risks of that happening. So you're just going to go ahead without aspirating after you've got your position and go for it. I know in class we used to talk about how when you inject, you need to inject, every like 5 to 10 cc, or every cc is about 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, and that's a long time. Most likely, this vaccine is going to be something between like a half a cc, 1 cc, something like that. You can go a little bit faster if you want to with this. That's again more of a way to help with making sure that the liquid is not pushing really hard at any given time because it's being forced into a space too quickly. With that quantity, we're probably going to be fine. And also some patients will tense up or feel anxious if you're spending a lot of time with the needle in their arm. So this is one of those things where sometimes our best practice actually has consequences that are not foreseen in the textbook. And so you can go a little bit faster and you'll be okay. It shouldn't, the studies and stuff that I've looked into on that haven't shown significant changes in patient status or anything like that. When you're done, we need to make sure that our needle is either disposed or covered like immediately after it comes out. Again, I really don't want you poking yourself or the patient again or something like that, because we don't know what's in our patient's blood or in their body, and either way, we just don't want to expose ourselves to that. Again, I'm not sure exactly what our setup's going to look like especially if we are walking up to people to get this done or anything with social distancing. If you're going to have a sharps container like right there, or if you'll have a little one you take with you, or what the situation is going to look like exactly. If there isn't one, hopefully they give us needles that are OSHA compliant, and that will have some kind of like safety sheath like we used to work with, where you push it to the side or you slide a sheath up. And at the very least, you can get it up, and then you can set it somewhere that you can then take before you go on to the next person and dispose of it. My guess is they would give us something smaller or temporary to work with that we'd be able to dispose of the needle right away. The blunt tip needles, they're still sharp. They're not like, again, you'd have to really kind of mean it if you wanted to drive it into something, but that's it's still a sharp object. So if you were on the reconstitution group or you have to reconstitute meds, make sure that we are being conscientious of that. A lot of those blunt needle caps are not OSHA compliant. They are just caps at the start. So usually the idea with that is that when you're done using the needle, you might remove it by its base, but then you would throw it into sharps right away. You wouldn't want to risk it or anything. Ideally, we're not going to try to recap needles at all unless we literally have no other option, and that would be something that they would have to condone with us, and then we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But realistically, if we want to do this as safe as possible, the safety mechanisms are great, but we should not be trying to recap any of these needles. It just depends on what we're working with, though. When we're done, put a Band-Aid over and don't massage the site. That can lead to bruising and stuff like that. And it hasn't really shown to necessarily be super effective. I honestly can't remember when I was looking for videos on this, I kept running into like little things here or there that people were doing that weren't great. So I honestly can't remember if this video I'm about to show you does do that at the end. I know at least one of them I looked at, like I was like, oh, so far it's great. And then I got to the end and it was like, and now massage, and I was like, no, but I might have just given up at one point and just said, yeah, it's fine. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, Kathy, if we can stop sharing for a moment, I'm going to share my screen, and we will, I gotta make sure to share computer sound. I do that all the time. We are going to just watch a really short video that's done by, I'm assuming, someone who gives vaccines. I actually have very little specifics on where this comes from, but after watching the technique, I can say that for the most part it's good. We might have to clarify a couple things that we're not thrilled about, but one way or another, this will be hopefully pretty good. If the volume's too loud or something, or too quiet, just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down to make tweaks. I think you'll be able to adjust it too, though. So here we go.
Go. So we've completed our paperwork. She's not allergic to anything. And we're going to start the process of giving the injection. First thing we're going to do is find her deltoid muscle. If you're unable to feel the area of the muscle, go ahead and have her raise her arm. With your fingers, you can then feel the muscle. Some nurses will give the injection in the posterior section, which is more painful. So if you can, if they tolerate it, most will tolerate it better if you go in the front. Make sure she rests her arm down. In older people, the muscle is going to be lower. Another way to locate it is if you do 2 fingers below the joint, you will then locate the injection right beneath that. So I have a good idea where her muscle is in this area. I'm going to go ahead and clean with an alcohol wipe. You can pinch the muscle first and then clean. It's up to you as long as you know where you're going. And I've already purged the air out of the vaccine. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the muscle. I'm going to go straight in. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, straight in. Because it's a vaccine, I do not need to pull back on the plunger. I'll give the vaccine, put the safety needle on, and she's done. Some nurses like to rub the area prior to putting the vaccine in. If you go like this on the area, some feel that it will cause a decreased sensation. And
Cool. So a couple thoughts there. She does say pinch, but she's really not. Oh, I got another video pop up on me. Sorry. She does say pinch, but she's really not. If you notice, she's not pushing that hard. When she also says more like the front anterior, we're still talking in terms of body dimensions, anterolateral. Like we're not saying like go into the front of their, like with your patient's positioning. But she is right that more towards the back end of that deltoid, it's going to be a little more shallow. And again, if we're trying to get it into that muscular space, the less muscle we have to work with, the more painful or sore it will be later. Most Americans have underdeveloped deltoid muscles. So we are going to be working with smaller muscles, even if they also have more subcutaneous tissue. So that's another reason why it's really good to kind of do a light pinch. In terms of demonstrating reconstituting, I am able to do that for you guys tonight, and I'd be happy to. I realize I'm going longer than I was I promised for time. So it's up to Kathy and Don, I guess, if you guys want me to do that right now. Otherwise, I would also be willing to go through this with any of you guys, either virtually once you have your supplies, or in the lab if we can schedule an appointment, which we can kind of manage this with social distancing. I'm very okay either way. I just don't want to keep everyone here till, forever o'clock.
Thanks, Sam. I think reaching out and doing it at a different time than the meeting is fine, because I want to make sure I want to be cognizant of time for people. The other thing is whether or not, I thought we had described that you might have a video also that shows reconstitution, or you might be able to create one that we could post on Blackboard for people too.
Correct. I will be able to throw that up. You guys have all seen that before from back in the day, although some of my students who had me a while ago, I got a new one. Don't worry. It's not I think some of you had like the 2-hour long video and stuff. Don't worry. This is way shorter. So it should be just fine, but I'll throw that up at some point too. And then you guys can see what's what. And it'll be better.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again. We'll finish up what we're talking about now. Okay, so what do we do when it's actually go time for us? We're going to use a software called Remind. It's an app called Remind, and we will post the details of how to get that app on Blackboard. That application, what it is it's basically our ability to communicate via phones without having to utilize phone numbers with each other. I know that Dr. Parvey uses this quite a bit. It is especially made for education, and so it'll work well. Now, what does it mean when it's go time? We will have that information more when we learn more from the public health department. In other words, where do we go? Is it 2 or 4 hour blocks of time? Is it 7 days a week that they're going to be open? Is it in the evening? I've asked these things of John, and he just doesn't know all those details yet. So he will share it with us as soon as we know, and we will share it with you. But we will have a notification system in place where Dawn and I will take half of the group, and we will notify you, and then we can answer any questions and coordinate that. We'll also be working with the other faculty on just putting together kind of a, what I would say that we're pretty used to, an on-call schedule or something like that with the other faculty, so that if Dawn or I was not available for a particular day or time that we would be doing that we would have a faculty member available. So we'll be working on that, but watch for those instructions on how to download that app. And if you have any problems with that, then you can certainly contact Dawn or I. Dawn, I think this is you.
It always helps if you take the mute off.
I knew that.
I was going to say, I like it when you talk to yourself and then you get a sign that says you're muted, or a message. So just a few things on some of the expectations. So our roles, students are really going to be, at least as of this moment in time, what we know is that students will be responsible for checking the paperwork that people bring to the clinic prior to getting the immunizations and actually administering the vaccine. If needed, depending on pharmacy, or like Sam said, if they just can't keep up and we are reconstituting, some of the students in nursing might transfer over and help with that role as well. The faculty that are going to be at the clinics will assist with whether it is checking paperwork, organization of getting people through the clinics, administering the vaccines, reconstituting the vaccines, and then faculty will also be there to guide students, answer questions, offer reassurance, just kind of, guide them and help tweak the students a little bit if we can help with the technique and how they're administering the vaccine. So what to wear? We are asking that the students wear your nursing scrubs and that you wear your CUW name tag. We do not know at this time if we're going to be outside or inside, and we don't know what time of the year this is going to happen, but like Kathy said, it'll probably be the beginning of 2021. So you might want to think about wearing a long sleeved shirt under your scrubs. Faculty, business casual, but again, have your CUW name tag with you. John has told us that PPE will be provided by the public health department, so that will include masks, gloves, gowns, but we're asking you to bring your face shield that you were given through CUW this semester with clinical. So everyone should have one. If you don't have one, please let either Kathy or myself know, and we'll make sure that you get one. And then as far as professionalism, be on time. So, once Kathy and I find out where these clinics will be happening, kind of do a quick check, do a quick map quest, do something so that you kind of know what your travel time will be. Be engaged once you're there. And then one of the largest things is honor your word. So if you say you're going to be there, please show up. It seems like our part in this is such a small part. When you think back to the beginning when Kathy said how many groups John was looking for to really kind of put this project together and roll it out, it seems that our role is such a small role, but it's actually not. We have a pretty significant role. And so if you say you're going to be there, we're counting on you, and we're counting you to be there to help with those immunizations. And then again, we don't know how the clinics will run. We don't know if they're 2 hours, if they're 4 hours long. So make sure that you pack snacks and water just in case you're going to be there for a while and you want to take a break and have something to eat or drink something. Next slide, Kathy, please. And then we just wanted to finish up the Bible verse that Kathy and I shared with you in the letter that we sent out. So serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord and not people. This is really this is an opportunity that you may never have again. You might, but a pandemic like this and really this mass vaccination is something that I know we have never seen before. And so the positive impact that it can have on the people that you're helping, and the positive impact and the changing effect that it can actually have on yourself. So we thank you. We thank you for your servant heart. We thank you for your time. We thank you for being willing to do this and your commitment, and then your dedication to helping others. So just thank you for being a part of this exciting opportunity that we have. So questions, I think, Kathy, we wanted to just leave it open now in case anybody had written down some questions, right? Now you're muted.
I know, it didn't give me my thing. I wasn't talking loud enough. Yeah, absolutely. Sam and Dawn and I will try to answer your questions as best we can.
I just want to get ahead of something that I forgot to mention that's very important. For these videos where you're going to be showing us what you're doing, don't inject each other. That is important. Do not use a real person for the injection technique. So you might say, Sam, what on earth could I possibly use instead? Well, we do have options. If you come see me, we could theoretically hook you up with some of our deltoid pads, or if you wanted to and we have the space at the time, you could theoretically record your video, maybe injecting on Martha or something like that. Otherwise, if you're at home or you're far away at the time that you're doing it, I have seen people do things like inject into a peeled orange, or and the reason why I brought this earlier is not I was just fiddling with it during the presentation, and it reminded me that this is what I would actually recommend people use, is some kind of sponge, because it'll hold the fluid. Just make sure that you have something underneath it if you're worried about the surface under you getting wet. Don't set this on your computer and then do that, because that'd be bad. So please just use something like that to do this, these videos or whatever. And if you have questions about it, or you're like, I can't set everything up right, again, come let me know. We can maybe schedule a time and we can, work with you on it there in person. I have tripods in the lab, so we can do stuff like that if you need help with that. But it doesn't have to be that fancy either. Just as long as we can see what you're doing, that counts.
Annie asked on the chat if they can use safety glasses instead of face shields, if they have safety glasses.
I think, Kathy, that might be something that we just want to run by John to see if they have any specific requirements or guidelines on it. So Annie, we'll take a note of that, and one of us will somehow get back in touch with that.
Yep, I'm taking notes, so I'll make sure that I include that in the notes. I think the other thing was, I will make sure that on the Blackboard, the site where you're actually going to submit your videos, that I'll describe what we want in each one of those videos, so that you don't need to just take that at kind of remembering from what we talked about on the PowerPoint. So we'll have those on there, and as we learn more, then we may edit that. Like we talked about, we may take a couple of them away. It's a good question about demonstration videos having a due date. We did talk about that quite a lot. There's the whole, we run a risk if we leave it too far in the future for not getting it done. I will say I do that all the time, right? I'm a deadline driven person. So we were asking that you get the videos done if you can by Monday the 23rd by the end of the day, and I will have that in Blackboard as well. It's the Monday of Thanksgiving, so you can get it all done before Thanksgiving. This month, November. Mm-hmm.
Question as far as, oh, go ahead.
Nope, Stephanie, go ahead.
Oh, just a question as far as the face shields. I know several students in our clinical group, their face shields actually came apart, broke. We had students having them held together with Gorilla Glue or with binder clips or with thread they've threaded through there. If that were the case, can those students get a new one?
Stephanie, I would definitely have them, Kathy, shoot either Kathy or I an email with all the students' names, and we'll look into it and see if we can get some more.
Okay, and I'm not sure if they're all people participating in this or not, so
Sure, okay.
I'll just find out
Okay.
who is, and if they're broken, ask them their names, and I'll send you guys an email.
Perfect. And then we'll send an email out to them and let them know.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry they did not hold together, but thank you for letting us know.
I think only like 2 out of the whole groups did hold together, to be honest.
I think a lot of people were trying to do their best at getting PPE out there as quickly as possible when all of this was happening. I think we ran into that with some of the masks too. The intentions were
Also,
really, really good, yeah.
Yeah, it's also a 3D printed project, and I think they've
Mhm.
revised their model on that since they started producing, and you guys were some of the frontliners to get those. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
they were in the first round, I think,
Yeah.
to get those, so.
I think you got one before I did. So yeah.
Any other questions for us?
I have a quick question.
Sure, Annie.
As far as the students go, is there a possibility that, say if this does happen during winter break, is there a possibility that this could count for some of our clinical hours?
I have no problem with it counting for community health clinical hours. But I think I know. I can't speak for any of the other faculty that would count for any of that. It would, I would definitely count it for for community health.
Annie, which one were you hoping for?
Well, I think a couple of us are in leadership next semester.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that your objectives with leadership have a little bit of a different focus than what this is.
I tried, guys.
And a good try it was, Annie.
I think that's the same answer, Stephanie, for the prep time. It would be, if anybody's in community, then they could, but that would have to, those people are winding up their hours for fall right now. Any other questions? All right. Well, it is 7:01. Hooray. Good job on getting this done. I'm going to stop the recording. I will post this on Blackboard. Like we said, on Monday, the baggies will be available at the nursing office for you to pick up your supplies, and the Blackboard will be up and operational for you to get the additional information. As we know more, we will communicate that to you. If we need to have another meeting, we will do that. I anticipate that maybe we won't even, be doing this till, later in the first quarter. Then we will definitely have another meeting so we can make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.